Hello crafty people, it's Sharon here once again, and I'm back with another video featuring a character from this lovely stamp set from Funky Fossil, which is called Stone Age. On my previous video I coloured in the Stone Age man that you can see here with his club, so if you'd like to look back or refresh on that, there's a video in my feed which I'll try to remember to link to the comments in this video. But this time I'm going to focus on this little dinosaur here, which is kind of like a dino dog. And just to give you an idea of what you can do with these, here is a card that I've made using those two characters and a little bone that's also from the set, and the sentiment that's also in the set. So that gives you an idea of the kind of things you can do. And now we're going to move on and just colour up a little guy just like this one. So here's our lovely little character who I've already stamped out using Memento black ink onto Nina cardstock. These are both good for use with alcohol pens, particularly the Memento ink pad, which means that when you stamp with it, it won't bleed with your alcohol pens. So it's quite important to use the right ink pad for the job. The pens that I'm using today are going to be my Ohuhu Honolulu B pens once again, and the reason I've chosen those is because they have a brush nib and also a fine nib, and as you can see this character is quite small if you compare him to my finger, so he's probably about 1.5 inches, so it's handy to have a fine nib just for these little details that we've got going on. Now I'm going to make him green and orange, but you could do him any colour that suits you, but let's get on and start with the colouring. So I'm going to do most of his body first, I think, and I'm going to do that in shades of green. I've picked 3 greens from my pack. I've got G060, G080 and G270. Sorry about the focus there, it is quite hard to get them into focus, but hopefully you'll have picked that up, or you can use, you know, similar greens that you might have handy. I'm going to start with my palest colour, which is going to be the G060, and I'm going to give my dinosaur a nice colour all over with that, trying to avoid those orange spots. So what I'm going to do is just use the lightest touch with my brush pen to go around those orange areas, and I'm going close to them but not quite up to them because the ink will naturally just have a little slight bleed, which means that it will sort of fill in that gap if I just leave a tiny gap near those spots. Now his arms and his legs are going to be green as well, so I can just go straight over those. But I'm trying to avoid his mouth and his tongue and his teeth if I can. And because this is relatively small, I'm going to probably go over all of it, apart from his nose. I'll do that in a moment. There we go. Now I'm going to go with my darkest colour, and I'm going to use the fine nib now because I'm only going to use the tiniest amount of detail. The dark is G270. If you like, you can go in with your medium colour first, but because this is, we're talking very small areas here, I'm going to just use my dark colour basically so that I put only a tiny amount in and I don't lose all of my highlight area. So I'm going anywhere where I think there will be shadow, remembering the idea of having the light casting on his face. So the back area of his back is going to be darker, and anything that sits behind anything else. So the under his eyes is darker, the top of his mouth is darker, and behind his nose, because his nose sort of protrudes, and also the bottom area of the mouth here, and he will cast a little shadow with his hand too. So you don't have to be too precise about this. I'm just adding in, you just want to get shades of light and dark which give your character a little bit more roundness really. Now my middle colour is going to be G080, and again going with my finest pen this time, I'm colouring over everything and leaving a white highlight in the middle. So I'm actually going completely over my dark green, not too much but just a little bit, and what that does is it lightens it up just a little bit, and then I'm extending into my lighter area. So I'm just going to leave an area of highlight somewhere in the middle, and there's some areas where I haven't put any dark colour but they still need a bit of shadow, so I'm adding my medium colour in there too. And on his like paw, I guess you call it, I'm trying to be very careful to leave some highlight right at the very top of his hands, as if the light shines down on them. And this, with his belly, I want to leave a certain area of pale colour in there as well. There we go. And then we're going to go back to the lightest colour and blend. Sorry, I'm going to go with my fine nib this time because we're getting into little nitty gritty detail. I'm going to blend from the medium to the light, but not completely cover that light area. I want to again leave some more variation. And what I can do is I can go over all of the colours if I want to, and just bring that light tone in towards the middle. And hopefully that's going to blend a little bit. Now if I feel like I've lost my dark colour too much, this area is all quite wet now, so I can just bring in some extra flicks of my dark colour just to add extra low lights here and there. Like so, and they will naturally start to blend a little bit more as that dries. Now his nose, you could choose to do a different colour, but I am going with the green, and I also need to remember to do his ears, and I'm just going to very simply colour those with my darkest colour and my fine nib pen, because there's really no room on those for shading, so I'm just going for a bit of contrast really. Right, going back to my palest colour once again, I'm going to give his nose a colour in now. So it's G060, and I'm going to use my brush pen just to get that first layer of colour on there. And then I'm going to go, I think I'm going to go with my medium this time, still using my brush pen, and add some shade. And I'm using my brush pen because I'm going for a much thicker area of shadow there than I was on the body of the animal. And I'm going to get my fine dark colour just to add the final detail where the very darkest areas would be. And I actually quite like it like that with the line. Meanwhile, I feel like where I've added my my low lights, I do want to just blend a little bit some of that. So I'm going to take the fine end of my medium pen and just go back and touch on the edge of those, just to give them a little bit of bleed in some areas where I feel like it would be nice. There we go. So our dinosaur is nearly done, apart from a few little details. So just like with my Stone Age man, I want to just add something to those eyes so they're just not completely flat white. And to do that, I'm going for very pale grey, which is CG020, and I'm just going to add a shadow onto his eyes. I'm not blending or anything, I'm just adding that in just to give a little bit of contrast. For his tongue, which is only a tiny little part, I've got a peachy colour, which is E030, and I'm just going to add some colour to that. I'm not even shading it, I'm just putting some colour in there. But I want the inside of his mouth to look darker, so I've gone for a darker grey, and that is CG1104. And again, using the fine, I open the wrong side of my pen every single time. I'm using the fine side of my pen, there you go, to add the darkness. And what that does, by putting that little bit of darkness there, increases the brightness of what's around it. So it's kind of an optical illusion. And now the only thing left to deal with him is these tiny little spots. So I've got two colours. They're in the yellow range, but they're kind of orangey. I've got Y4 and Y10. And this we definitely need the fine nib for, because these are absolutely tiny. And I'm just going to go in and colour those in, which basically is just taking a touch of this pen, even though it's a fine one. If you don't have a fine liner pen, you could do this with pencils, because they've got a nice sharp point. If you prefer, it won't really show as if, oh no, I've used something different, because it's such a small area. And I'm just adding some tiny dots with my darker pen, just to give it a little bit of dimension. So our dinosaur is done, and I'm just going to make the little bone quickly, just so you can see how I have done it. I started off with Y110, which is like a creamy yellowy colour, and basically I'm just drawing some colour on there, not going all the way to the edges. I want to give that feeling of whiteness as well, so I've just kind of gone along the edges of my bone, drawing some rough lines. I then want to make it a little bit greyish, so I've taken CG020, which is my very pale grey that I use for his eyes, and again using my fine nib, I'm just going to add some extra colour, but not quite going all the way over my peach. So I've got a combination of a peachy colour and a grey colour. And then finally, using my CG1104, which is the grey from the inside of his mouth, I'm just going to add the tiniest little low lights, just to give it a little bit of as if it's got dents and some quirkiness in it. And literally all I'm doing is just touching here and there, and just a little bit in the middle like that. And that's our bone coloured and ready to go. No blending at all. So there we have our cute little dinosaur dog character, coloured with alcohol pens, and he goes perfectly with his master, who's the Stone Age man. There we go. So all that remains now is for me to cut those out, which you can do by fussy cutting, or you can use the dies that come with this set, and then you can make your own card with him, just like I have. So I hope you enjoyed that today. If you like what you see, I'd love if you'd subscribe to me and come back and visit me another time. Meanwhile, you can expect to see me very soon with another crafty video for you. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.